Okay, it looks like we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another DataStax live stream. If you could see us okay, can you give a thumbs up in the chat or say hi just to make sure that you're seeing us well? Oh, there's a thumbs up. Nice.
Wow.
All right, great. We're getting some thumbs up. And I was able to scroll a little bit through the chat to see where everybody's tuning in from. We have Philly, we have Colombia, we have Finland. So, we're global here. It's amazing. Thank you for turning up for us. We have a lovely agenda packed for you today, and we have some lovely folks on the live stream as well. For first introductions, I'm Melissa Herrera. I'm a DevRel engineer here at DataStax, and I'll be your host for today. And let's pass it over to Rodrigo and then Karan just to give some brief introductions.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all again. We've been through a couple of tutorials last week with the live stream about the Langflow 1.1. So great to see some of the same folks over here, some of new as well, so we can recap a little bit. Very good to see everyone. Happy to talk about new topics that we have with 1.1. Happy to talk about agentic stuff. A lot of new features with agentic and multi-agent sort of pipelines that we can build with Langflow right now. And super happy to see Composio with us. I don't know if did I say it right? It's Composio or Composio, Karan?
It's Composio, yeah.
Composio. Right. All right. That's awesome, and I love Composio. We've been using it so many times for demos internally. So very excited to what this conversation is going to drive us to. Right.
So quickly introducing myself, I'm Karan, one of the co-founders of Composio, big fan of Langflow, and we also use Langflow plus Composio internally a lot. So we are like the first tool set for AI agents.
Awesome. I'm really excited to learn about Composio as well, and see how they kind of tie in with Langflow as our platform for our AI platform as well, and other Gen AI application builders. And just some quick housekeeping rules before we go into our actual agenda. For folks who have questions, if you see on the right side of your screen, there should be a Q&A tab. Please use that to drop your questions there, and we will answer them along the way. And if there are any other comments or things like that, you can just use the chat as well. So before we jump into all of the fun stuff and demos and things like that, I will give it over to Rodrigo again, just to give a brief overview of Langflow. And he mentioned we did have a 1.1 release just recently. So Rodrigo, can you just recap a little bit about those new features and things like that from the recent release?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start by talking a little bit about what we discussed last week and what is the plan with Langflow 1.1, right? We started by saying, let me share my screen over here, and we started by saying that the idea behind Langflow. Well, give me a second. Okay, there you go. So can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Cool. All right. So idea behind 1.1 is we talked about the idea of having Gen AI being different, Gen AI development being so different from traditional development, right? And why is that? There are a couple of reasons, but I think it all comes down to one fact, which is Gen AI is a black box still. Models are black boxes, right? So while you are coding and in traditional development, you have access to the functions that you want to change, debug, find out what is going on. But with Gen AI development, there is a key piece of your software that is completely hidden from you, right? Either because it's the model is too complex, or because it's a third-party API that you're not going to access the bits and pieces of it, right? So basically, what we're doing with Langflow is we're providing this IDE-like platform that will help you develop platforms develop Gen AI apps in an interactive and very controllable way, right? And why is that? Because typically when we're developing with Gen AI, we're tweaking inputs and expecting to see different outputs, right? We're not debugging the middle. We are just tuning the beginning and hoping to see differences in the end of the application. And if that involves chatbots, if that involves conversation, it requires even more interactivity and more control and understanding of what is going on in every step of the process, right? That's what Langflow is for, and this is what we're trying to build with 1.1. And the most common way to build powerful applications, I'd say most common and state of the art, let's put it this way, today, to build a majority of applications with AI is by creating these agents, right? And for those who don't know, an agent is basically a system that uses an LLM to reason and access tools or external functions, right? So basically it's going to think a little bit, and then it's going to choose tools that it can use. For example, let's say, hey, send an email to someone, access a website, do something in Trello or Notion or Jira for me, right? Access Slack and so on. So how can we create these beings, these agents, in a very easy and intuitive way, and give them the power to access these tools in a few clicks of buttons? And this is what we're trying to solve over here. So before we go into, hey, how I can build a powerful agent, and then extrapolating that into Composio tools and multi-agents, I want to just go back to how you create your first agent in Langflow in, let's say, Melissa, 3 minutes. Let's try to do that.
Yeah, let's see if we could do it in 3 minutes. And that was, you just answered pretty much my next question I was going to add, is how does this new experience with Langflow 1.1 simplify the development of these agent pipelines? So what can I do as a developer that maybe not be familiar with agentic workflows, and can I really do this in under 3 minutes like you're saying? So let's take a look.
Well, let's try to do it live, right? So I'm going to start from scratch instead of using a template over here. This is for those who have never seen Langflow. This is Langflow. You can start from one of our templates over here. We have templates for basic prompting, vector store RAG, simple agent for you to get started with, but a lot of other use cases, and many more use cases are coming as well after Christmas, right? So take a look and try to start with one of these. But in this case, I'm going to go with a blank canvas, right? And I'm going to increase the size. Melissa, you tell me if you're seeing my screen well. But to create an agent, I'm basically coming in my sidebar, and I'm going to find the agent component, okay? And you're going to see a couple of parameters. Basically, you have the model provider, right? So if I change the model provider, you're going to see it changes a little bit the component. In my case, I'm going to keep OpenAI because I already have an OpenAI key setup, and I'm going to keep the 4.0 mini, right? And then I have agent instructions over here. Basically, this is going to be the system prompt for those who are familiar with agentic systems, or even like the backstory, right, of the agent, how you want it to behave, what you want it to do, and etc. So the rules that you're sending to the agent to control its behavior. And when I come to tools over here, let me find a very simple tool. Let me find a calculator, okay? And I'm gonna plug the calculator tool into this agent, okay? That's it, right? You can already start. So I'm gonna add a chat input, because I wanna send my chat input into the agent's system, and then I want the response from the agent to come out as an output, a chat output. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm connecting chat input, chat output, the agent, and it has access to a calculator as a tool. All good? Can you try that?
Yeah, let's run it.
Okay, cool. So once I create my first application here, I'm gonna click the playground button, and I'm gonna start interacting, right? So if I say hello, it should come back with an answer, right? So how can I assist today? And basically it shows me the intermediate steps, right? In this case, there weren't any intermediate steps over here, because it didn't need to use tools or reason or anything, right? But if I do, let's say I'm gonna do, hey, can you multiply? And let's try something very hard, because some folks tell me, well, Gen AI, like language models, can do math, but try something hard and you're gonna see that it goes very wrong. Right? So times, I don't know, 0. And let's go again. And I'm gonna send it. Hopefully,
any mathematicians in the audience, can you make sure that this is correct?
Please confirm, right? And basically, Melissa, what you're going to see here is that instead of sending me the response right off the box, what it did was it accessed the calculator. Okay, so it said, okay, let me pull the calculator here and let me try to do that operation over there, and it sent an expression to the calculator. And once it did it, it returned it got a result back, and it gave me the result. Okay, so you already see like how you can instantiate your agent in a very, very simple manner. And if you want to extend that, how you're going to do it is, let's say I want to add a new tool here, and I'm gonna use the URL in this case. So you can see this URL component. It's basically a component that can access websites. Let's do Composio, right? It's composio.dev, Karan.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so if I access composio.dev and I press a play over here in this component, let's see if that's going to work.
So it should fetch all the content from composio.dev.
Exactly. So if I see the text, it's going to bring me the raw text, like unformatted, right, for that website. And it probably has a lot of stuff over here. But what I want to do in this case is I want to use this URL component as a tool. So right now in 1.1, you have the tool mode. So I'm going to activate that. Cool. And let me plug that tool into the agent. Now, let's say, can you access Composio? Oh, actually, so I committed a mistake. So URL, so the URL component has the URL parameter, and this parameter over here, you see it's grayed out. It's being controlled by the agent, right? So if I wanted to extract, I need you to tell the agent, in this case, in this particular case, what website to access. So I'm gonna say access composio.dev and summarize what they are building. If that's gonna work.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. So it did it, right? So it went to the website, and there you go. Okay. Now why this is cool and why this is so powerful is because in Langflow you have a lot of components pre-built, right? A lot of integrations or bundles, and you can also create your own components. So if I creating new custom component, I can create it with Python. So Langflow is Python behind the scenes. You can just code whatever you want over here. And once you code your function, it becomes a component that can be converted into a tool with the click of a button, right? So you determine what fields are going to be selected and controlled by the agent, and you can use it in a agentic manner, okay? So that's the idea.
So quick question for you, Rodrigo. For those who may not be familiar with agentic workflows or agents in general, like what's the difference of using an agent versus kind of just telling your prompt to do these things, like these several things, like just you're a calculator, I want you to do this, and fetch a URL. Like how does the agent simplify this?
Okay, I think the difference between an agent and a traditional pipeline comes down to something called the agency, right? Which is, agents are called agents because they have agency, meaning free will or decision making. They can select what to use, right? When I'm prompting, I am telling the system what to do, right? So I'm saying use this and that, and then use that and this, right? But let's say I have, Melissa, 20 different tools. I don't know which one is better to use. Let the agent decide, okay? So I'm talking to the agent, and through the conversation, the agent itself is understanding what I want, and it's choosing tools based on the context, right? I'm doing a step above, a step beyond the basic prompting pipeline, right? With agents, we're saying, okay, I don't want to tell the model what to do. I want to give the model a couple of options and let the model itself decide what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're adding some layer of decision making that maybe and like a simple prompt to a model might not be able to do in the first pass or something, or it might hallucinate the responses, like you said with the calculator example.
Exactly. That's it. So before we turn over to Composio and multi-agents and stuff, let me just show you one more example of how a single agent can be powerful within something like Langflow. And I'm gonna go through this. I'm playing around with a couple of examples. Let's try to go through as many as possible today. So this is already pre-built, but I'm gonna walk you through each one of the components and show you what this is doing. Basically, we have a text input, right? I'm just writing a domain over a URL over here, right? And just to explain first, what this is doing is it's supposed to be a documentation reader, right? You're gonna pass your URL over here of the docs you want to talk to, right? And it's going to extract links from that documentation. So in this case, I'm using Composio docs, right, Karan? And you're gonna see these are the pages, all of the pages from your documentation, okay? So I extracted all of them using the URL component plus a language model, a prompted language model. So this prompt over here is taking the URL response and with the raw HTML, and it's parsing that to become a list of nice formatted URLs, okay? And then what we're doing with this is we're enabling an agent to have that list, some storing that list and retrieving that list over here with Langflow's memory, okay? And then when I look at this, I created a prompt for the agent using that list, saying, hey, you are a documentation reader assistant that can access doc links to retrieve information. Here are the links you'll be able to access to format them properly before sending. Here are the URLs extracted from the provided HTML. And then the agent has access, like at least sees this in its instructions, okay? So since it takes that as agent instructions, I want to give it the capability of accessing URLs as well. So I did the same thing. I plugged the URL as a tool in this case, and suddenly you can come within the playground and you can start talking to it and saying, let me show you from the beginning of the conversation. Okay, so tell me what I can do with Composio and why it's so powerful. And what it did was it found a couple of links where it could find information to answer this question.
Wow.
And then it found some stuff. And after it found some stuff, it decided that it needed more. So it took more information, what are tools, etc. Right? So then it broke it down. It gave me the response and so on. So and I move on with that. But to illustrate how, so I'm gonna let's give it away like this flow for folks to use and explore. But just to illustrate how off-the-shelf agents in these platforms are not very like useful, or to illustrate how flexible this thing can get, I just, in the end, I wanted to try something out, which is every time that I ask for a response on one of these documentations, what I get is a very convoluted answer and actually like answers that I like too GPT-like, right? And I wanted the model to be shorter, right? So what I did was I changed the agent instructions to say, yeah, answer short and objective, like we do with typical GPT, right? What happened was that after a couple of answers, it goes back to answering long again because it forgets, or because there is so much information to it that it's not very useful. One line of prompt saying for it to be objective and short. So what I did was instead, what if I could input every time together with my chat input, if I could prompt my own chat input with a reminder for the agent. So instead of passing the chat input directly to the agent, what I'm doing here is I'm taking the chat input, sending it to a prompt. The prompt says, quick reminder, try to answer in a single small sentence, right? So every time I'm sending a question or anything, it's indirectly sending this by default, right? I just wanted this to be every time because I was annoyed with long answers. So now I asked a new question, and I say, so tell me what I can do with Composio and why it's so powerful. And it's saying, with Composio, you can da-da-da, right? So it's a single sentence, super
There
quick,
you
in the
go.
way that I want it. Right? So I customize my agent in the way that I wanted, doing some sort of a mix between agentic flow, right, and traditional prompting workflow, right? And that's, I think, the power with Langflow. And when you extrapolate that with, okay, all that plus you create your custom component, you turn them with code and you turn them into tools and you give these tools to agents, that's like, whoa, there's so much that you can do over here, right?
I think that's really cool, Rodrigo. And the fact that, for example, your initial chat input, you might have connected that directly as a component to the agent, and then you're able to work back and say, okay, I want to be able to send this line with my input. Now, how do I do that? And then you found a component built into Langflow. You could drag that in and then put that as the middle point, and it looks very simple, right? You just have to modify the links right there from the chat input to the prompt to
Yep.
the agent, and it's very visual, which I really like, and you can go into your playground and kind of see the steps in which you might have wanted to modify something. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Quick question here from Santosh that I wanted to ask is, can you add your own custom file to fetch the information or connect an internal database like a database agent?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So basically, so Langflow has the data components. So you can do API requests. You can load it from directory, load from a file, right? And SQL queries to databases. You can do webhooks, right? And all that.
Ton of
So
data sources.
a lot of data sources. You can also, and of course, a lot of vector stores if you need, a lot of embeddings and memories. So for example, one of the very powerful one we've been playing with a lot is Mem0. Their integration is amazing. And Mem0 is so powerful. They create this knowledge graph of memory information. So it goes like classifying information and creating this knowledge graph that can be retrieved very fast with a custom vector store. So a lot of integrations. And for everything that there isn't an integration, creating a new component in Langflow is fairly easy, right? We have a couple of pre-built GPTs or even flows over here. In Langflow, we have one of them that help you create your own custom component, right? So I also invite folks that are familiar with Python to go ahead and try a little bit, right? It in the beginning can be a little bit hard to understand the rules, but when you get it, it's so simple, right? The logic, the Python logic behind how Langflow components behave is very, very simple. And once you get the touch of it, you're just working with custom components all the time. So highly recommend that.
That's really awesome. And I think that's a really great segue as well. And on the topic of components, to talking about Composio and Composio's component within Langflow. So I wanted to pass it to Karan to kind of give an overview of what Composio is and a little bit about the component that we've just integrated into Langflow.
Yeah, I think we all saw like how easy it has become to create like some awesome agents with kind of Rodrigo's demo using Langflow. Um, I think at Composio, what we believe is kind of like to make agents even more powerful, you need to kind of provide them like really high quality tools. Uh, so kind of like these agents right now are so powerful, they can kind of read, like the LLMs themselves are so powerful, they can read, write, and probably solve the leak code type problems faster than like most of us combined. But when it comes about like real world task, that's where things start to fumble, because kind of there are two major problems to it. One is kind of connecting these LLMs to real world tools means you have to go through like auth flows, API versioning issues, rate limits, the kind of stuff that kind of every engineer like makes every engineer question their life choices at even 2 a.m. in the night. And then like even after like you wrestle through them, these AI agents like the LLMs are like sometimes don't understand these tools. They make rookie mistakes. Like kind of if you ask them to create a PR, like, and if there's a merge conflict, they'll just do a git push minus minus push just to kind of reduce the token size, etc. And that's where like we started with building agents ourselves and realized this problem. that like creating good quality tools is a really important part of building agents, and we created Composio with the idea to simplify that whole process. And I'll quickly showcase you the component and how easy it is with our kind of Langflow integration to make really awesome agents, which
So,
can.
Karan, sorry. So before you show that, can I ask you this question so that you clarify to others the difference between um, what is what you consider a tool versus a traditional API, right? Because you can turn an API into a tool, right? And I'd
Right.
like to understand, and I think a lot of people would get that, like that sense of relevance and importance to
Hmm.
compose if we understand a little bit better what you're doing when we're converting basic API into now it's a tool, right?
Right. So, I mean, like the APIs were always developed for kind of human developer consumption, right? So that like the developers use them, the documentation, etc., to write code very, very fast and integrate with various softwares. The difference like between like humans using those APIs and like AI using those APIs is like kind of uh, so these LLMs don't get a lot of things which human grasp very easily. So to give you an example, like we humans are okay with nested schemas, right? So if there's a person inside, there's an address inside, there's a city and pin code. We are okay with that. But like we have done a lot of research around it, like and kind of this doesn't work very well with LLM, and you have to kind of flatten the schema out and give it to them because they work very well with the flattened schema. That's one example.
Okay.
Then like the APIs have like things like jargons like status codes, etc., which are very good when you're writing code because you can standardize the handling of the errors. But agents like they work well if you give them actionable responses that you have gone wrong here, please correct it. And like these are some small tidbits, but like kind of this increases agentic accuracy by kind of humongously. Like I mean, we had a blog where we show like when you start with like just directly using API, the function calling accuracy of a single function call is somewhere as low as like 30%, and we use some of these simple techniques that made it like 90-95%, and that's just single function call in an agentic like in agentic software there are so many function call that happens, and this kind of percentage like essentially cascades, right? So kind of you need to control this percentage, you need to increase the accuracy to make actually reliable agents that work kind of in real life scenarios.
Nice, super cool. I didn't know that. So I think there's a lot over there. I'm sure I'm gonna have many questions, but go ahead and show your demo first.
Yep. So can folks see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep. So this is the Langflow kind of flow that I've created, like where kind of the user starts with a chat input. Then it's just like an agent with like a bunch of tools. One is kind of Tavili AI search tool, which the agent can use to kind of search through the internet, browse through the internet. Then there's like kind of this Composio tools, which has like Google Docs connected. This one has Google Calendar connected, and this one has like again Google Calendar connected. So I'll quickly showcase you how to connect a particular app in Composio. I've already filled in my Composio API key, which I can get via signing up with Composio just right here in my kind of global secrets, which got imported right away. And then let's say like some of them are already connected for me, but let's say Calendly is the one that is not connected. Then it's just kind of refreshing Calendly. You get the authentication screen. Because I had already connected Calendly earlier, it directly is successful. But if it's something else, it will show the unsuccessful kind of message. Sorry, it will show you the OAuth screen, which you get like a Google OAuth screen where it takes the permission. So it will say you are giving permission to kind of Composio to access your Calendly account, and it will come now. Like it will come as connected now, and you can kind of use different actions of Calendly, like creating an event, sharing an event, etc. So yeah, for the purpose of this demo, I'm using Google Docs and Calendar. Um, and like once I build the agent, the idea is I'll show a previous flow that I did. I asked the agent to create a Google Doc on competitor research for Composio.dev and create a calendar event on my calendar to review it in 3 hours from now. So this is the type of task that you give like a business analyst in day to day, right? To prepare a doc, and then so that you don't forget to review it, ask them to kind of create a calendar event around it. So that's what I gave this kind of Langflow flow, and it did a Tabili search and kind of. Then create a document on Google Docs using Composio's Google Docs integration, then found like the current time, because the LLMs are trained in the kind of October 2020. Most of them are like in 2023 era. They don't know the current time, so it got the current time, and then created an event. So I just executed it like literally at the start of this kind of meeting. So yeah, I think this is the Google Doc it prepared, and it like the meeting started around 10 a.m. and in 3 hours, that means like at 1 p.m. it created a link for me to kind of review it. I think it missed the kind of Google Doc, adding the Google Doc here, but most of the times it gets that as well, right? So yeah, I think you can. The idea here is using Composio. You can essentially you don't have to change your workflow. Like whatever tools you are using, for example, GitHub, Jira, SendGrid. We have like 260 plus tools. So like you can build agents and essentially connect them to the tools that you are using, so that you don't have to go to like chat gpt and paste a prompt, etc. Like instead you can just you like give the power of these tools to the agents directly.
That's great. And I'm assuming it also connects with Google Sheets and Google Slides and all those things like that. So you can even do like build me a PowerPoint using the content from this doc.
Yes, yeah. I think most of the kind of Google Suite is actually
Nice.
one of the most used tool set for us.
For
I
sure.
already
Yeah.
I already see I'm gonna start using this from next week. I'm using
Awesome.
Google Docs a lot.
Yeah.
Me too. Me too. I use G Suite every single day. I'm always making some sheets, especially and updating. So if I can use Composio to kind of simplify that, it makes it a lot easier. And that was also to answer Devi's question as well, who said they need to connect with G Sheets. Well, Composio,
Wow.
as Karan just demonstrated, can do that. Um, Another question here that came from the Q&A is, um, can you set up an agent, or let me put this in the overlays from Tom. Can you set up some agent to upload information from handwritten PDFs that contains pictures to a program that has specific places for fields and pictures? So if I'm just clarifying your question, can it accept, when you're saying handwritten PDFs, are you saying some images or things like that, Tom? But I'm assuming we'll just say PDFs, right? So can we set up an agent to upload information from PDFs that contains pictures? So it might have some charts or some images on the PDFs and things like that. How can we do that with the agent?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's less a problem of the agent and more a
Yeah.
problem of the model. Right? So if the model, I'm not 100%, right? So let's double check on that. But if the model has image reading capabilities, right, like some of the OpenAI models have, for example, I assume the model within the agent will do the job already. Right? So it will be able to read that image and for other stuff, like for example, if you want to use, if you want to structure the information you're getting from a PDF and separate what is text, what is image, etc., you can also use parsers that are provided just for that kind of thing, right? Because then you can process images with specific image processing models and text with specific models that you want. And you can do that by using one of our integrations, like, for example, unstructured IO, right? And they have a complete suite of parsing capabilities for this kind of thing. That might be a lot of this stuff might be very beta still, but very soon you see all sorts of multimodality already inbuilt into Langflow.
Yeah. So maybe to even add on to that, I think, Tom, you might be setting up a tool that you would then connect to the agent to be able to carry out these tasks that you want to do. So again, kind of distinguishing the difference between what a tool does and what the agent is doing. Great. And another question that came in that I wanted to bring up a little bit earlier. Let me see if I could still find it. Oh, another Tom, a different Tom, has a question here. Tom Burnell asked, how does it know which agent to use if you have multiple data sources, for example? So again, maybe the difference between agent and tool. Rodrigo,
Okay,
if you
so
wanted to touch on that.
yeah, so I think I get the point. Like a lot of these libraries, like LangChain, for example, they have different types of agents, right? So you have the SQL agent, the CSV agent, and so on. We're not separating that in a clear way in Langflow, at least for the native agent. We want to have a unified agent that will do the job for everything else, right? So basically, we are going to have more and more tools that support that agent for example, CSV parsing or JSON parsing and so on, right? You also can be very creative with the tool mode. For example, we have a component called structured output, and you can literally convert that guy into a tool, right? So you can force your agent to use the structured output, for example, as a tool to convert stuff into the format that you want. Or you can even parse out the response of the agent can go into a structured output format so that you get your response in the way that you want, right? So it's less about multiple types of agents. We still carry the LangChain, multiple types of agents for each one of the types in the integrations bundles. You're gonna find LangChain agents over there. But our main agent is more about how can we unify everything into this single entity here, right?
Awesome. Thank you for that, Rodrigo.
And I know you're going to read another question, Melissa, but before you do that, I also have a quick example of how you can use another agent, one of the multi-agent examples over here. So after we read some of these questions, if you want, we can go through that as well, and a couple other flows.
Let's go ahead and do that now.
Okay, so let me share my screen. And by the way, Karan, it would be cool for us to build an agent that would send an email and grab the email of one of these folks here from the Q&A. So
yeah, do we have a SQL IO integration in Composio?
yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. So
Yeah.
look at this. I'm gonna show you a very, very simple example of reasoning in Langflow. And by the way, if you see this yellow like kind of things, it's because you probably are using a version that is not fully updated or something changed, and it's proposing that you update the components that you have, right? In this case, I think I'm going to do it. I didn't want to do this because I'm going to have to change some stuff again, but that's all good. Because it's going to be the ad hoc demo for you to see how it works. Let's say I want to create a model, or I want to create an agent, and I want to force it to reason in specific situations, right? And I'm trying to create this reasoning tool, okay? So the reasoning tool is going to be an agent, another agent, right? So let me call this reasoning. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert the agent itself into a tool, right? So Melissa, we said everything can become a tool, and that includes agents as well, right? So you can plug agents into other agents by converting them into tools. So you go recursive enough in multiple layer levels, right? So here I have the reasoning agent. And let's say my agent, because I wanted my main agent, I want it to be very fast. I'm going to use a small model, right? And let's extrapolate that and imagine you're using an open source model that is super, super fast. And for reasoning, I want to use a powerful one, right? Because if the problem is hard enough or something like that, I want this agent to call the reasoning tool and start thinking a little bit about the problem before it answers, okay? And when I activate the tool mode, what I can do is, you're gonna see this tools metadata. If you don't see, it's because it's coming. So open table, and I can adjust the name and the description of my tool, okay? So let's say I'm gonna do, well, you're the reasoning agent, and use this whenever you're face with a complex problem. Right. Basically, I'm telling this tool to give instructions to the agent so that it knows when it's going to access it. Right. And then, all right, all cool. If I want to make this slightly prettier, what I can do is I come to controls and I hide some of the fields as well. So I want to make that a little bit smaller. I want to unhide the temperature because in this case, I wanted to reason with some creativity, right? And the other fields, I think I'm going to hide them. So tools metadata, I don't need that anymore. And close.
So these are some advanced settings.
And so basically, I'm setting an agent. Agent access this other agent when it faces a hard problem. Okay, hello. It's supposed to answer without reasoning, right? Cool. Now, think of and let's be very like sanity check here, complex solution to prove how the Earth is not flat. Hopefully, let's see. Not sure. Maybe it's not accessing.
Too complex of a question.
Maybe it's, yeah, or maybe it didn't understand like it should. Yeah, it didn't understand like it should. So I need to prompt better probably. So I should come over here, right, and say, yeah. So whenever you need to reason or think, use the agent reasoning tool. Let's try again. Let's see if that works. And okay, but
and while this is happening, I'm also trying to imagine how we can bring in Composio to this kind of like linking of agents, multi-agent, if I should say, type of workflow. Karan, if you have some ideas that you're coming up with as you watch this run.
Yeah, I think what we've seen in most cases is like a single agent or a single LLM can't work with more than like 15 to 20 tools at the same time because it like can't grasp more than that information. And so like we've seen like a lot of success where we divide the tools across different agents, where like one agent has only access to the Gmail tools, let's say. The other agent has access to all the Google Docs. The third one has Google Sheets. And like there's a kind of hierarchical like top agent which kind of manages all the three.
Yeah. And that's a very good point because when you give a lot of tools to a single agent, it tends to make more mistakes, right? So what you want to do is you want to make very specific instructed agents that behave in a specific way, access just some specific tools. And then you want to give other agents the capability to call these agents, for example. And this is the simplest example over here. And it did it. Like, look at this. So I asked it. So I changed the prompt just because it wasn't good enough. So I said, so reason about it and think right? What it did was it called the other. So it executed the agent, right? The other agent. And with an input value saying, prove that the Earth is not flat, right? And you're going to see the output from the first agent reasoning. And now you can imagine how, well, if I can create an agent that does just this reasoning over here, I could literally create an agent that does anything and use it as a tool to this second agent. So this guy could become what we typically call the orchestrator. And it could orchestrate multiple agents in parallel, like used as tools over here, right? And that's sort of powerful because you are splitting tasks and making them very specific level. And to go one step beyond this, what you can do is, all right, so you have multi-agents over here already. So using an orchestrator to control a couple of agents as tools. But let's say I want to take a step further. I want to do a sequence of agents as well, right? So the output of this agent could go into another one, another orchestrator that has its own tools and its own other sub-agents, right? And the output is coming from this final guy over here. So you can go crazy, right? You can get to whatever your creativity takes you with this kind of thing. We're exploring, and every day we try Langflow in a different task and etc. We find out features that we didn't even know existed. right? So we were like, oh my god, so you can use memory. Like the other
Yeah.
day, we are discovering that you can use the power of using the message history and storing messages as tools, right? And how this can be so powerful because you're gonna store information. Let's say I create a specific memory just so that the agent is going to save info about, let's say, my work, and another memory for the agent to store messages about my hobbies, right? So I can create these multiple stores and have the agent storing information when something is triggered or something happens, right? So
Hmm.
you're going like, yeah, you're creating a database, almost a graph database with just native components in Langflow, and you're retrieving these with the message history later on, either in a traditional mode or in tool mode as well, right? So it goes beyond like what you can do with basic, much beyond basic traditional workflows.
I really like this because we're literally seeing how these kind of complex tasks where that might be kind of hazy in our mind, right? Like we want to do so many things, and then it's being solved with this kind of multi-agent architecture here. Just to answer some of the questions of folks who ask, so Santosh and Terja, they're asking, how can we use multiple agents to kind of communicate with each other? Right here, Rodrigo showed where you can have this central orchestrator kind of agent that has an orchestrator agent, right? That's getting the ultimate response from all of the other agents that are connected, and then we bring in Composio as well, kind of in those agents, and set different tasks based on what you want a single agent to do. So Karan was giving great examples, right? So one is maybe focused G Suite, one might be focused on Calendar. So yeah, am I doing a good job explaining, kind of breaking down this complex architecture?
Absolutely, absolutely, very, very nice.
Yep.
And if you want to extrapolate and say, well, given a spoiler over here, what you're going to go to be able to do is, well, let's say I get to a point where I'm happy with this, but I want recursiveness, right? So in the next Langflow version, you're probably going to see this, like you're going to be able to plug this edge into
Back
there,
into
and then it's a Turing machine. It's an agentic Turing machine. You go all the way. So I don't even want to know the kinds of problems that this could lead to as well. But the creativity here is going to get to another level again, right? So please explore this, try out, and let's see what comes out. Let us know what you're able to build with this and suggest features as well.
Yep.
Yeah, for
Just want
sure.
to add.
Go ahead,
Just wanted to
Karan.
quickly add, like one of the, I think the short memory feature that you just showed as a tool, that's like really valuable. We use it kind of really often because like in tools you have like so many IDs and jargon like things, right? Which kind of LLMs can mistake, right? Like you get one
Mhm.
ID, let's say sheet ID, and the agent wants to use it like another time. Like we have sticky notes in our workflow. Similarly, like these kind of short-term memory is like sticky notes for agents where they can store this
Exactly, exactly.
and
That's it.
reuse it.
Like sometimes I'm using, I'm taking the prompt, a basic prompt, and I'm converting that
Right.
into a tool. And you say, why? Why would you convert a prompt into a tool? Because maybe it has instructions, and some parts of the instructions come from external components like
Right.
a URL or my database, right? And then I want that prompt to behave as a tool as well. So when the agent is say it's prompted like, hey, can you teach me about, I don't know, aviation, right? It's going to take a look at the aviation prompt and learn some instructions to tell me about aviation. So you can literally go like very creative with this kind of thing.
That's really cool. And we're talking so much about like these examples with, setting a specific agent to focus on G Suite, or Karan, with your Composio example, doing the marketing research. I'm curious to know what other fun use cases that you've seen people use with or create with Composio.
Yeah, I think there are like a lot of interesting things that I kind of see every day people come up with, but some of the major things are like people are building a lot of personal productivity assistants. To give you an example, like
Mm.
a scheduling agent, where kind of like we have triggers where kind of an email comes, then you can via webhook like hook it up to like Langflow and like use that to spun up an agentic workflow. So whenever an email comes, if it's about scheduling, you can have the conversation like via the agent using Composio's like Gmail component, and kind of do a to and fro, figure out the right time, and kind of schedule on calendar, and kind of there create a draft like saying like we are good to have a meeting tomorrow or something like that. So like those type of use cases, similar on Slack, etc. We have Slack as well. That's like one of the
Blackbot,
kind of
yeah, that'd be fun.
yeah, yeah, most popular use cases. Then there are like AI SDRs that are kind of emerging, right? Everybody wants to sell their product, and kind of you have to send emails. When like a reply comes, you have to reply to them. You have to maintain the sync with the CRMs like Salesforce, HubSpot, and that's like a very messy part, which we have tried to solve to a large extent. So kind of doing all that like an AI SDR job, like an SDR job via an agent, that's also getting a lot of traction and usage. And then there's like the traditional customer support use case where kind of like answering user queries and creating like tickets or like ITSM softwares like Zendesk and like till up to like Jira. So
Hmm.
those are the things. Those are also the things people are exploring.
That's really cool. It's bringing in Composio, I think, into Langflow really unlocks so much more potential and kind of reach that we can that we you are already kind of explaining, Rodrigo, with your multi-agent structure, and then again now we have all of this further access to these other integrations, right? And these other apps that we need for our building our AI applications, I think is really, really cool. We have 3 more minutes, so I wanted to just wrap up with some more questions from the audience before we have to say our goodbyes. One question here from, let's see. Okay, Andrew, what are some interesting examples of people using Langflow in their businesses? Rodrigo?
Okay, that we have a long list. So let's go with a more high level response. Okay, uh, there are three areas that we see people using Langflow for, right? And basically, and I mean area like in the AI space, not areas like in business areas. Uh, and these three are: one, they are building automated pipelines, right? So prompt chaining, right? They are prompt chaining with external information, and they are automating something. Okay, that's number one. Number two is RAG. So they are extracting information from a source, and they want to talk. It's a chat bot, right? It's not an automation. It's a chat bot, and they're talking to that, trying to retrieve information fast to answer questions. And the third one is agents, right? Now, if you're gonna ask the kinds of applications in the businesses, you can think about from legal to, let's say, you want to retrieve information about new rules or company standards and so on for onboarding. That's very used. We're using that for retrieving information in research, right? There are a couple of companies doing research with Langflow, and they are collecting a lot of sources. They are vectorizing some of them. For others, they're doing their agentic sort of RAG, right, and collecting that information and doing the chat answering in a nice way. There is sales. So if you take the part of sales where there is a customer talking to the agent, and the agent is aggregating information of that customer and saving that information for preferences, for budget, for style, for personal data, and it's storing that into a database, and then it's retrieving in a second conversation and sending emails and so on. So all of these kinds of applications, there's source code Q&A, right? So you have massive source codes, and you need to understand that, or you need to onboard people into learning something new, and maybe having access to meeting transcripts to get up to speed with a lot of topics, etc. So you can think about all sorts of, like, there is no limit to the specific field that people are using this kind of application for. I think there are three main categories, which are these: like either it's a prompt chaining, or it's a RAG, basic RAG, like or vector store RAG. I put it this way, like the traditional RAG we're used to, or it's agentic, something that is more than just Q&A. Right?
Right. And through those business cases that you're mentioning, Rodrigo, I'm seeing so much overlap with the use cases that Karan just shared with us too. So I really think that this kind of integration with Composio being a component in Langflow is a really happy partnership, or kind of like I'm doing this because this is what I feel like it looks like, right? And you showed it a lot in the demo, so thank you for those amazing demos. Karan, you as well. So we're gonna close it out here on this live stream. I know there were a lot of questions that went unanswered, but please feel free to connect with us and ask your questions to us, either sending us an email or just giving us a connect on LinkedIn. We are very open to the feedback here at DataStax, Langflow, and Composio. We want to continue the conversation with you all, especially with these multi-agent applications, and we want to see what you all build. So if you have any, I'm sure Rodrigo would be excited to see some PR requests for new components that you want to bring in. Same with Karan. So let's continue the conversation. Yeah. I'm
And
so happy. Oh, go ahead, Rodrigo.
yeah, I just see a question asking about issues with one thing or another, and just to say this, we are going through the comments in the Q&A afterwards, and we are noting down these issues, right? So don't worry,
Yes.
taking that. I see Arthur's question over there, and also if you have questions or you want to get closer to us and talk to us, connect in our Discord channel. We just reached 10K subscribe. It's 10K members yesterday, right? So wow, 10K people on Discord talking about Langflow and building stuff together. So thanks to the community, and feel free to reach out over there.
For sure. And Karan, any closing remarks from you as well?
No, I think kind of looking forward to seeing some really exciting agents come up. Like I get surprised by the type of agents kind of community comes up with, and like that's always intriguing and like even useful internally. Like we are using one peer review agent that was created by someone out like not in Composio, and that has turned out to be really good using Composio's GitHub and other integrations.
Amazing, amazing. It was great. Thank you all for those who attended and joined and engaged in our conversation. And yeah, we are excited to see what you all build with both Langflow and Composio. Talk soon and see you in the next live stream. Thank you, everyone.